There we go. We're live. I'll have to go back and revisit the that because I don't remember that being the title of the book. Anyway, hello, folks, Facebook and otherwise. This is the Short Term Shop talking today about how to find people to work for you, basically, and do things that need to be done. Because I'm actually going through this. I'm always going through this, and I figured it'd be good to share it with other folks. I got a guy, basically. Better call Saul. And one specific that I'm dealing with right now is not returning my phone calls. I call this the Southern gentleman because again I'm out of place. Grew up in the Midwest. I lived in New York City for 15 years, and now I'm living in the Deep South. And I'm out of my element, quite frankly. But down here they have this move, which we don't have in Yankee land, where they just they kind of yes you to death and then never get it done. And usually I find that there could be any number of reasons why, but I find that a lot of times that happens is because they are just too busy. They don't want the job, or maybe it's not in their wheelhouse, whatever the case may be. They don't want the job. And that happened to me recently. I was calling and calling. It was an HVAC. I need a swap. It's a 14-year-old unit on just a house, single family, and one of the two is old, and it needs to be replaced. It's just not keeping up anymore. So it's probably got a leak. It's got it's just down on fluids, etc. And I just find personally when it's that old, I don't really like to chase around problems and pay to have little things fixed. I feel like at that point I'm taking money that I could have spent on the new unit and reusing it on an old unit. So anyway, sure, we'll be out there next week. We'll be out there tomorrow. We'll be out there the day after tomorrow. Like 4 or 5 times of this happening and phone calls that are not getting returned. I guess you got to find that sweet spot on when this particular scenario of when to give up. If anybody has any thoughts on that subject.
Well, I'll say that, and Luke, I have the same situation. I'm from the Northeast. If we didn't do it, we just weren't going to do it. We just said no. You get down here, and everybody wants to be nice. They want to take the job. The problem is they're all e-mythed out. They're all trying to bake pies. And if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to or read the e-myth, you need to go listen to it, because that's where you recognize that all of these vendors are that person, and they're probably never going to be anything other than that. So the rule that I was always taught, and I don't follow it as much as I should, it's about a 10% rule. Basically, call 10 people, 5 of them will actually respond to you, 3 of them will actually show up, and 1 of them will actually give you a quote. The guy who gave you the quote's the one getting the job, because he's the only one that actually got that far in. So you might have to call a whole lot of people to actually get the job done. And once you find someone that actually is reliable, then stick with them and stay on top of it and use them for a bunch of other stuff, and you refer him out to some other people, and then eventually he'll flake out and you'll be back where you started.
This is me. I know I'm already segueing. This is going all over the place already. But how your first 10 words to this person matter. Just like what they say to you matters. If the first words out of your mouth are "How much is this going to cost?" You're going to be on the short list of not getting called back. And if your first 10 words are "How do I pay you?" that's a completely different thing. And how they answer that matters too. How am I going to pay you? And how they answer that tells you a lot about how they run their business. So
yeah, I definitely think that you want them to want to work with you. You want to drive that from the get-go, that you're going to be easy to work with, that you're going to pay on time, pay quickly, appreciate their services, and you want them to want to work for you.
Skilled trades in this country are on short supply. And in these areas, these people have an unlimited amount of work that they can do. And in what Luke said, the Southern culture is not let's work ourselves and get rich, forever. They're just kind of they work at a pace they want to work at, and they do as much as they want to do. So you want to be at the top of the list of people that they want to work for. So all that matters, and the relationship end of it matters, and you got to quickly learn your polish up your people skills and learn how they want to be talked to, because going to what Derek said, the e-myth thing is real. And how most skilled tradespeople are not awesome business people. And but you got to get what you need done, and you got to get them what they need. So,
Joe, did you have something there? Or,
Oh no, you just want to make
You
sure
did?
that they want to come back and work with you. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. I mean, born and raised in
Absolutely.
North Carolina.
Yeah, see, I said that we got to set the Southern gentleman on the call. So it's a different vibe. And Tim, of course, is originally from the Midwest, like myself. And anyway, I do want to point out before we get any deeper that we want to treat all of these folks that we're talking about today with the utmost respect in all ways, because we need them. You know, if we don't want to give, I'm not trying to give any kind of impression here that that these folks are disposable or anything like that. These people are making the world a better place. I'm talking about handy people, roofers, HVACs, contractors of any kind. So let's get that out of the way. We respect these folks very much, and we need them 100%. But that being said, we are we need them so bad that I think a lot of times that can be part of the problem. And Derek, you touched on this a second ago, so let's segue into a second topic here. And that, specific, I think there was maybe a little more specific to handy people is how long are they around? Because I find that these guys kind of tend to, move away. We're also in vacation markets where nobody is really from these areas. So people tend to move a little more often than in a normal area anyway. And I found in my experience, if you find a good handyman, you might get 3 or 4 months of some kick-ass work. And then next thing you know, they just disappear. Are you guys finding that to be true as well?
It varies. I mean, there's, one thing about the Smokies specifically is there are a lot of those people who do have those businesses there are either, maybe they're not local, but they've been around a long time. I mean, I know of several in the Smokies that have been around for a decade or more. There's always going to be fly-by-nights that come and go. The challenge is the ones that have been around, they have a pretty good book of work. They have again, they're not big business people, so they're not trying to blow it up. So they have, a list of maybe 100, 200 clients that they regularly service, and they're just not looking for more work is part of the problem with those guys. So that's where you end up dealing with the new guys that are coming along who are flaky, maybe because they think they can do it. And after 2-3 months, whether it's they move away or realize they had to go back to a W-2 job because they couldn't figure out how to make business out of it. So, but yeah, I mean, if you get a year or two out of somebody that's newer, that's not already established, you're doing pretty good. Usually if it's somebody new that has not been on the scene before, expect a couple of months and just have backups. Don't have just one, call one guy to do one job, call another guy to do another job. Don't feed it all into one person, especially from the general handyman stuff where anybody can do that. Where I say anybody, where there's a lot of generalized stuff out there. Definitely have more than one, and try to give equal amounts of work to both. This way, if one of them does flake, you at least got somebody else you can call pretty quick.
and they all got a buddy too. So like this whole thing spider webs out. So they all, I got my lawn guy from my bug guy. And they all got a buddy. Your cleaner is the hub of that. They're around all these people all the time, and your HVAC guy is going to know a plumber, and your plumber is going to know a yard guy, and on down the line. So don't be afraid if you're struggling to find the specific thing you need. If you're not calling for an HVAC thing and you got an HVAC guy that you've done work with 8 times, don't be afraid to call him up and ask him if somebody can change your hot water heater.
Yeah, you bring it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to go on to that, if your plumber's happy with you, and he gives you a referral to, say, an electrician, they're going to work with you because it's one professional, handy person to the next one saying, hey, this person's cool to work with, they need an electrician. So so you have a better chance of getting somebody to come out a little quicker if you do that. I've noticed.
100%. Yeah. You get more bees with honey. And so let's talk about from handy people to contractors. So we hear this all the time. I need from noobs. We hear this a lot from newbies, right? Where they're like, I need a contractor. I need a contractor. I need a contractor. And a lot of times they don't even know what that means or why they think they would even need a contractor. So a lot of times, guys, especially when we're new, it boils down to identifying what the issue is first before we go out there and start Googling contractor in Blue Ridge or wherever, because first of all, now I'm opening Pandora's box. Google's not necessarily a very good place to be finding this type of folks anyway. In my opinion, I think Facebook groups are better. We'll tackle that here in a second, but how do we identify the issue? Let's talk about that. Like Reagan, I know you've got a plumbing thing going on right now, you know, and how do we know, like when we're brand new, like do we call a contractor? Do we call a plumber? Do we call an HVAC guy? Any suggestions there?
Well, I like to do a little troubleshooting myself first before I try to get anybody in there. Like I'm a little bit handy. So if I can, you know, try to figure things out on my own first, kind of go that route. But, you know, I have the luxury of being here. I know a lot of folks that, you know, that manage from afar, they don't. So, I mean, your cleaners can be good helps, I guess, too, if they're noticing some things like that. I don't know.
The general handyman, the guy who advertises his service as a handyman, he doesn't have a license of any kind. He's the guy that shows up that can tighten a bolt or put a new doorknob on. Those types of people are going to be your first line. If you're not local and you can't go look at it yourself, or you don't have a clue what you're looking at, let's face reality of it. Some of us are handy and have an idea what we're looking at. Some of us have a clue what we're looking at, and we like to pretend we do. Get that handyman out there to take a look at it, and then let him say, this is way over my head. I would say you probably need a plumber. Now, he may be wrong too, but at least that's a start in the right direction to, you know, who to call next.
Yeah, I've had good success too with getting those people or my cleaner to shoot me a quick video. You know, a guest will say, the toilet's overflowing. And it's like, oh crap, the toilet's overflowing. And it turns out the toilet's not overflowing, it's just running. You know, there's a difference between, you know, and they don't know the difference. And so I get my cleaner or somebody to send me a quick video, you know, send them out there, shoot me a quick video. It's like, okay, I don't need to send, you know, whatever out. I just got to do this instead. So
I kind of think of it in terms of like, whether do I go to urgent care or do I go to the emergency room?
There you go.
So, like,
Yeah.
do I want the emergency room bill or do I want the urgent care, you know, copay? And that's anyway.
Because when I hear people say I need a contractor, every single time I say to myself, no, you don't. No, you don't. You need a plumber. You know, you need an HVAC guy. You don't need a freaking contractor that can like rebuild your house. And they're not going to answer the phone anyway. You know, I mean, you got to figure out what the job is and really try, you know, don't get yourself in over your head. Because a lot of times, I guess my point is if you're calling the wrong guy, there's a really good reason they're not answering the phone, you know, because it's really all about trying to get these folks to answer their phone. So we touched on this a little bit. How do we find these folks? And again, I personally think Google's kind of a lost cause. I generally go to Facebook, local Facebook groups, and they drive me nuts, but it is the best kind of the best way to kind of cycle through and find, you know, I have like a system where I'll join these groups. There's groups for every single market in America is going to have at least one or two or three short-term, long-term, residential. It doesn't matter what type of an area it is. And I use a magnifying glass and I'll search. I was doing it this morning, HVAC. I'll try several different searches because a lot of people don't know what HVAC is, right? So I type in air conditioner, HVAC, heater, you know, and then I'll kind of judge it on how long ago these responses were, because if this was posted 2 years ago, you know, those folks may have moved on or gotten too busy or whatever it is. I want somebody that's being used like now, you know. So, but I do have varying levels of success with this. Any tips or tricks on how to find the right people to work with?
I found on the Facebook group thing, you know, join more than one for your area for sure. You know, and there's like in all of our markets, there's a I'll call it the cabin cleaners of Smoky's Facebook group. And that's great. There's tons of information on there, but try and find some local ones that are, I'll say, more residential, because they don't get flooded so heavily. You know, try and find one, just your local neighborhood something Facebook group. And I've had good luck with that, because all these ones, these other ones, they've got every short-term rental owner in the country trying to go through that one thing and call the same plumber, you know. And so I've had good luck just going a little more local on the groups I'm joining. And then you're kind of getting involved in the community a little more too. So
your own network, right? The people you know, the people you talk to. Unless you're a complete, you know, loner out there, you've got one property and you've never communicated with anybody else doing this in that market, you've got other people. I mean, obviously, Short Term Shop has its own Facebook group, which is a great resource. You can just search the Facebook group. You don't even have to post to ask the question, just search the group and you'll find tons of recommendations. And I like the local Facebook groups or just word of mouth. I I start reaching out to people I know. Again, back to what you said earlier, Luke, referrals from, or what Tim was talking about too, referrals from the other people you have that you're working with. If you've never needed a plumber, but you've had lawn care being done, or you've had other stuff being done, reach out to that person that's doing that for you and ask them if they know somebody. And maybe they don't directly, but they're local, they're in the market, they're going to know other people who know other people. And it's a good way to just start branching out and spreading out from there.
Yeah.
Emphasize that. I mean, to the T, that happened to me last week. I called 10 people on Google, not a single call back, trying to find a plumber. And it was my local contacts to the T.
Yeah, I got 2 or 3 guys who are out. I got 2 or 3 guys. I'll send a text to these guys first and say, "Hey, you got a guy for this?" And if I know if it comes from one of those people that are like the 3 or 4 guys or girls that I reach out to regularly, then it's like a 90% chance I'm going to hire them. And if it doesn't, or if they don't have somebody, then my chances are going down. But you got to keep digging until you find something. Sorry, Derek, go ahead.
No, one thing I ran into this a little bit when I started looking for a plumber for my remodel just with a couple weeks ago, and I posted it to a local group, a small local channel that I'm on, and I got like 8 recommendations. Now, one problem I've run into is I reached out to all of those people the way what I would want to be reached out to, by email, text message. I did not pick up the phone and try to call any of them. I only got like 4 responses. So you should, when you're asking for referrals, the person who refers them to you, say, how do you normally communicate to this person? How do they respond to you? Is it by a phone call? Is it by text? Or is it by email? Because if you go in with the same process that they're used to dealing with, that they prefer, you've got a better chance. If I'm trying to email a guy who hates dealing with email, even though it's my preference, he may never reach back out to me. But if I pick up the phone and call him, because that's what he prefers, maybe he'll actually talk to me and I'll actually get something to happen. So, do some research on that too. Find out how they like to be communicated with. And if you can lead with that, you've got a better chance of getting them to actually respond.
Yes, and I read in a book one time, I couldn't tell you the name of the book or anything like that, but they said, respond to people the way that they contacted you. In other words, if somebody texts you, don't call them. They want you to respond to them the way that they contacted you. And I find that to be true. Of course, in this situation, it's the opposite because we're contacting them.
So we got to find out, try to do a little bit of research, or if nothing else, start with whatever your preferences start with. A couple of days go by with no response, start with whatever that next progression is. If you prefer email, then text is probably the next progression. If a week goes by, you've tried email, you've tried text, pick up the phone and call them, or if you're the other way, go the other direction.
And try at different times too, because most of these people are owner operators, so they're you're calling an HVAC guy, he's out there screwing an HVAC unit down somewhere.
Oh, we lost your audio.
Yeah.
There you go.
They might be they're probably in the middle of something. If a guy's changing a hot water heater out and you start blowing his phone up every 10 seconds, he's not going to answer right then.
Yeah, and you bring up an excellent point because if they do have somebody answering the phone, it's a bigger company. And that's not good or bad, but it's different. It is different. Some folks want to work with the guy that's just him and his assistant, or him and his buddy, or him and his brother. And then some folks want the big company with 500 reviews on Google. And either one of them can be good. I guess a lot of it boils down to you as the person that needs the work done. Who's going to work well with your personality? Do you need the little guy that's going to hopefully give a little more attention to detail maybe on the little stuff, but not be very good at communicating? Or would you rather have the Google review type of a situation? I use a little of both. I don't care,
Same.
Yeah, you have to have a little of both, because either one of them could be great or could suck. The big companies, they've hired a lot of people. You don't know who that guy is that's coming out to actually work on your stuff, or if he knows what he's doing. The little guy, might be really, really good, but really hard to get along with. But the little guy could suck too. You don't know. Until you go out there and actually try and actually see what kind of quality of work they do, you have no idea what to get. I've had good luck and bad luck with both extremes of that. So again, I think it's whoever you can get in touch with if you're in a desperate need, it's whoever you can get to respond to you. If it's not a desperate need, then it's whoever you click with.
And if you use the big guy and you have a bad experience or a great experience, it could be different the next time. Exactly what Derek said. You don't know who they're sending out there. One time Bill can go, and next time Henry goes, and Henry's grouchy on Fridays, you know. So
Henry, man, that Henry.
I know.
And to your point, Derek, you know, it also depends on our level of rock star as homeowners. If you only have one house, can generally be a little more difficult to get, you know, a broad scope of people to pay attention to you versus having 20 in one market. That's where scaling can kind of come in handy. Of course, if you got 20, you know, I've got several rehabs going on right now in the same market, and you got to have 2 crews, you know, and even with 2 crews, I need more than that, but I can't keep a 3rd crew happy, you know. But when you're brand new, it's going to be a completely different vibe. So Derek or Tim, you're going through a full rehab right now, like full on. You know, let's talk about doing this at scale, and then also let's throw in, like, when do I need a permit and when do I need somebody that can get permits and has licenses versus when I do not. And so, Tim, I know you're doing a huge, massive. This is a very big remodel you got going on right in the property you're sitting in right now.
Yeah, you want to check with your local jurisdictions when it comes to what needs to be permitted and what not, and you can contact your local county for that stuff. But also, you know, your contractors can often answer that question for you when you're, you know, don't try and be the judge and jury on that yourself all the time. You know, if you're hiring a guy to put a hot water heater in, just ask him, are you taking care of whatever permits are needed, you know, and let them handle that, because that's what you're paying them to do, you know. With their major rehabs, some stuff needs permits and some stuff doesn't. You know, if you're painting a wall, you don't need a permit. You know, if you're getting into heavy duty electrical and plumbing, that's probably different. So
also greatly depends on your market. But Tim, how did you find this guy that's doing this major rehab, and did you get multiple bids, and how big of a project is it? Walk us through what you're going through here.
Yeah, mine's massive, and it's a combination of things. You know, I ended up hiring 2 guys that are here like every day, and that was kind of a friends of friends network thing, and just I talked to a few different people. Yeah, but for me, I'm a little bit spoiled. I've been in construction industry in two careers ago. I did 16 years of construction management, so I've got a little background in it. But you know, when it comes to the day-to-day, you know, stuff like that, it was kind of a friend thing, and then found some people that just worked out well with my personality, and went that way. But then you know, I've been hiring subs for other stuff, and that has just been the spider web of network stuff. I mean, I've posted stuff on Facebook groups. I've brought in, you know, plumbers from here, and you know, I've had a couple different plumbers out here, and it's just all these things that we're talking about exactly how we did it. It's not been, there's not one magical way of doing it, but a lot of it's Facebook groups and asking people.
You're saying that I can't just make one phone call and get all this stuff done and be done with it? I actually have to.
There's no magic bullet there. You know, it's funny, like the plumber I ended up using to do a bunch of stuff, I actually had another plumber come out here that gave me a quote and gave me this other guy's number. He's like, well, I can do this and it's going to cost this much, but I'm busy and I got a buddy that might be able to get on it sooner. And he gave me the other guy's number, and he ended up being half the price and just rocked it out. And he's saved in my phone now as Awesome Smoky's Plumber, you know. And
hold on, it wasn't because of the price. It's not about the price here. I think what we're talking about is wheelhouse. This first guy you called, this job was not in his wheelhouse, and this second guy probably does this job all day, every day.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The second guy showed up with a trailer. You could tell he does a lot of, you know, a plumber is not a plumber is not a plumber. A plumber that does nothing but new construction is different than the guy that's going to snake out your sewer pipe. It's not the same guy. You know, so you gotta again start off asking, what do you need? You know, back to Reagan's thing, you know, diagnose, are you snaking out your toilet, or are you adding a shower, or are you fixing a broken pipe? You know, because it's probably 3 different guys. Or gals. I should keep saying guys. There's lots of girls that do this and they're awesome at it. And honestly, you know, same thing with HVAC. You know, the company that goes around and does nothing but put in new units might be different than a crew that does your service calls. And you may not want to pay the company that puts in new units to go change your furnace filters, you know. So
that's what I'm going through. I've been calling over and over and over to get a new HVAC put in on a house, and they just are not responding. I'm in a little tiny little town.
Right.
And I'm just chalking it up to a small town that can't find anybody. And I really just think they don't want to do swaps. They want to do the repairs. So I needed to get back on the phone, call around. Hey, do you do swap? Do you swap unit? And I finally called. He's like, what do you mean? What's a swap? And she had a different name for it. She called it replacement or something,
Right.
But and so in their little systems, because if you call asking for the wrong, you might even be asking for the same thing that they do, but if you use the wrong word, there's a disconnect, and it's not going to work out,
And like anything else, the more you do this, the more you're going to get better at it. And don't be afraid to ask people some questions. Like if you're talking to somebody and they don't seem to like understand what you're even trying to ask them for, ask them, are you the right person for this? And if not, don't say it just like that. Are you the right guy? But don't be afraid to ask them if they know somebody too. Like, am I talking to the wrong person? I'm new. Don't be, my wife has gotten so much better at this. She was, somewhat scared and intimidated. She didn't know what a septic system was. We had a septic system issue one time and she had to deal with it. And she's like, where's the number for the sewer department? I don't know. Yeah, no, that's not the way this is going to work, And now she, I had to draw her a picture of a septic system on a piece of paper, and now she knows the phone calls to make, and she's gotten way better at it. And I guarantee if her being from Dallas and she can figure out how to get this stuff taken care of, anybody can, so.
Yeah, for sure. Like educate yourself too. I mean, I think if you can educate yourself, I had to, in our RV, we had a water leak. I learned how to, I bought the shark bite fittings and learned how to do all the plumbing because I had to, but I had to learn how to do that in the first place. So especially if you can get a good contractor or your HVAC or plumber, if you're having an issue, have them explain it to you. How did that work? Why is it doing that? What can I do to prevent that in the future? If you can educate yourself, it definitely helps out.
I want to back up to kind of the beginning of this portion and highlight a couple of things. First and foremost, for the people out there listening, Tim basically lives on site and is acting as his own general contractor on his remodel. So that is very different than what a lot of people are going to do. The first remodel I ever did, I was very involved. I was out there. I was doing a lot of the demo myself. And that was because I wanted to be involved. And I did not have a general contractor. I had a carpenter who was a project manager, if you will, who knew a lot of people. And he kind of broke me in. He was a friend of mine. And I thought I was hiring a general contractor. I didn't even know he wasn't a general contractor. So I brought him in thinking I was going, I'm going to cut the check, pay more money, and I'm just going to let you do all this stuff. And I found out quickly that wasn't the case. So the key thing you're going to recognize is in a lot of these smaller towns, and Tennessee is known for this, you will be shocked at how few actual general contractors, we use that term contractor out there. Most of the people you are talking to are not general contractors. If you can find a general contractor and you want to be truly hands off, you want to just sign the check and you know that you're going to pay 10, 15, maybe 20% more than what you could do if you put the work in yourself. You can hire a general contractor if you can find one that will actually take on the job, because a lot of general contractors, especially right now, they're building houses. They're not in model. They're building huge projects. They do not care about your $50,000, $100,000 remodel jobs. You are probably going to be hiring somebody that's below that. Now in Tennessee, there's another tier below that. That's a remodeling contractor. There are limits on this. Do your own research, ask your own questions. I don't want to pretend to be an expert on it. But the reality is the people you're talking to don't even have that license. So, just recognize what your tolerance is for what level of licensing you want. Make sure they have insurance. That's pretty important. And, just know what you're getting into, and that if you want a GC and you want to be hands off, you're going to spend more money. Zeke, you have been quiet on this whole call, and you've got some background and experience in this line of things, if I'm not mistaken. What input do you have on this?
No, I mean, you guys are hitting it right on the head. I come from HVAC is what I used to do. I think for me, on my last purchase, you're definitely going to have to go out and outsource. What I like to do is find some cities that are close by, like here in the Smokies. I'll find my contractors out of Knoxville. They seem to be a lot less busy. So I think if you can outsource and maybe find a local city that's close to the market that you're in, you can definitely find some valuable people there.
That's an excellent tip. That's what I just did. That that HVAC I keep basically spawned this whole call. I went to the next town over, which is also a teeny tiny little town. This house is in Mississippi. And I said, can you go over to this other town over here? And they were like, hell yeah, we go over there all the time. And I said, well, do you understand what it means if I give you a door code? And she was like, yeah, we do that all the time. And I'm like, hell yeah, we're speaking the same language. So I just throw that out there. There's this elephant, like uncomfortable, weird thing about door codes. And to me, that's bull. It's like we were just talking earlier about having a day job and having long hair. That it's 2022, man. We got to get rid of this. You can't be who you want to be. We can be whoever we want to be. And I want to do this thing from a distance, and I can do that with a Schlage N code or a quick set. So well, the first thing that I ask, especially if it's not in a short-term rental market, they're probably going to hopefully understand that. But if it's just a little town where you live or whatever, you cool with the door code? You know what that means? And if they say, what are you talking about? Then it's probably not going to work out, but if they're like, oh yeah, we do that all the time. What's the door code? I'll write it down and give it to my guy. Then boom, door code culture, which I always have trouble saying that. Door code culture. It reigns supreme, man. I mean, forget about just in short term, just life in general. Even at my house that I live in, dude, what are the chances I'm home? I mean, I'm probably gonna be on the road or out, work dealing with one of my contractors at a house, and I need you to get in there and fix that HVAC while I'm gone. So boom, door code. And I give them their own unique door code. So if they steal my stuff, I know exactly who did it.
Hey, I just want to throw out there for anybody that's watching, if you guys have questions, you want us to go down a rabbit hole or talk about something, post them in the chat and we will respond to you. This doesn't have to be just us talking about what we feel like talking about. Feel free to interact with us here a little bit if you feel like it. Yeah. I should have mentioned that. Hit us with questions. We'll be happy to answer them. I do have one more topic, guys. I got a couple more, but back to the noob thing. Let's talk home inspections. So when I'm brand new and I'm reading this home inspection and there's like 77 items on there and I say, oh my God, I need a general contractor to go fix every one of these items. Again, I've bought 1 million houses. I am not a licensed real estate agent, by the way, so I can say whatever I want. 99% of that stuff on that home inspection is bull. It's a joke. But if you've never read a home inspection before or never read one in the market that you're reading in now, it can be very, very intimidating. I went to home inspector school. And what did that teach me? Not much other than home inspections are worth about what the paper they were printed on, which is digital. Now, that being said, I do love a good home inspector. A good home inspector, absolutely amazing. We love these guys. We need them. And even when I self-inspect a property, still today, I will pay the professional because he's going to be more diligent about putting it on paper and pictures. And then I have a document that I can go back to. But anyway, guys, long story short, when I'm brand new and I get an inspection back with 70 items on it, how do I keep from freaking out?
One thing I've done, and I've suggested this to clients: if you're new and we're getting ready to go into this phase, invest $300-500 and get a home inspection done on your own personal house before your inspection comes back on the one you're trying to buy remotely. Because you live there, you've lived with all the stuff, and stuff's going to show up on there that it looks like your house is falling down, but you're living in it. So you have an understanding of when you get that one back on the one you're not right there, what some of the stuff actually means. When they say the floors are unlevel and stuff, does that mean they're like at a 45-degree angle, or does that mean like there's a little divot that you've been walking over for 20 years and you never noticed it? Stuff like that. And then from there, it's really about kind of putting it into buckets. You got to put it. There might be something on your home inspection you really need to pay attention to. If there's a crack with a 3-inch gap in it in your basement, you want to pay attention to that. So the buckets would be something like, what needs to be fixed before I can start renting this? And then another bucket might be stuff that needs to go on my list of stuff I want to fix over the next year when I got time. And then at the very end of that, there's going to be a bucket of what stuff may I never touch in the 10 years that I own this house. It's just like, okay, there's whatever, it's just something there that I'm not going to mess with. So that's kind of, a little bit of what I talk about.
And a good agent is going to not only help you to recognize what's common or normal in the market. I try to work with my clients a lot to make sure they understand I see this on every inspection report. Doesn't mean it doesn't need to be addressed. And I try to make sure to understand that I'm not telling you to ignore these things. These things probably should get looked at and taken care of, but I'm telling you that they're perfectly normal, and 95% of the properties we look at are going to have these items on there. And then I'm
In
going
the
to
Smokies,
especially
you can't buy a property here without wood bees.
yeah, would
Wood
be
hangers.
loose
Joist
toilet.
hangers.
They're just joist hangers. It's all very common stuff. But I'm also going to try to guide them towards. I want to be careful that I'm not a contractor, right? And I may be pretty handy, and I may have a lot of experience, and even Tim has a lot more experience than I do. But we still are not going to tell you what is acceptable and what is not. I'll give you my opinion on what I would do if it was my property. But your agents are here to guide. They're not here to make decisions for you. So they're going to hopefully tell you, hey, if you want a good answer, here's a handyman, here's a contractor, here's who you should call to get a follow-up to tell you what it would cost to repair that or to do that. But understand that what we're talking about is how much it's going to cost, because every other house you look at is probably going to have most of this stuff too. So use it logically to make a decision on that. But, and I agree with you. I think a lot of stuff on home inspection reports is garbage. There are some home inspectors out there that in the real estate world as agents, we refer to as deal killers. They just make it look a lot worse than it is. So I think, and a lot of times I find that when you get that home inspection report, they just look at the report at face value. And I'll always tell the client, call and talk to the inspector, because they don't do that. And if they call and talk to the inspector will also tell them, yes, this is normal. This is common. We see this on every property. Don't just look at the paper and strictly go off of that. Actually have a conversation with your home inspector to understand the depth of what you're actually seeing.
You got a roof, you got an HVAC, and you got a foundation. Those are the three big ticket items. And then you got to know your foundations. My markets have crawl spaces, and sometimes I see a slab. The other day I came across a pier and beam, and I'm like a deer in headlights. I don't know what the hell this thing is. I'm like, is this thing like, I don't want this. I'm scared of it. It's out of my wheelhouse. So I might even pass on this house, which could be a smoking deal, because it's something I don't understand, or I got to go out and figure out what it is. So, and then when it comes to crawl spaces, figure out what cracks are not, like, you do not want, horizontal cracks. They're probably in most cases not awesome. Can they be fixed? Maybe. That's up to your engineer. Step cracks, do we see those all the freaking time, guys? Yes. Now, if you can see a daylight on a step crack on a crawl space, like, you got that much space, then we probably have an issue. But step cracks are, fairly normal. And it's not, for me personally, again, I'm not a real estate agent, so I can say just on my end, that's not something I'm going to pass on. If I got a vertical crack and it's 3 inches wide, I'm probably going to, I'm going to need to really want that house to dig a little deeper and get somebody out there and pay them, guys. I think that's another big problem we have is you're going to call a structural engineer to go look at that 3-inch vertical crack and assume that it's going to be free. It doesn't work like that. You need to be paying these guys just to come look, because 9 times out of 10, if you don't own the house yet, and they know this, you're probably not going to do the job anyway. Or if you do buy the house and pursue with the job, you're going to go bid it out to 6 other guys at that point, and they might not get the gig at that point anyway. So all things.
I prefer to use an independent structural engineer that's not tied to a contractor, because their only incentive is to give you an accurate information. If you use a company that also does the work, then you risk, how ethical are they? Are they giving you, good direction or not? So, in the Smokies, I have a structural engineer that I use, and I pay a minimum of $350 to $400 just for her to go do a site visit and give me her opinion. And that's without getting a written report. That's just her giving me opinion on what she saw when she was out there, and she's worth every penny of it.
No, in other words, don't be calling around and getting free estimates on, giant crawl issues or whatever it may be, foundation problems, and expect for them to show up, which leads me to this excellent question here from Josh. Can you talk about the difference in communication habits? He's got in parentheses Smokies. In my opinion, this applies to every market in the nation. I'm in 6, 7. Could you talk about the differences in communication habits? I've been experiencing lack of responses to questions or showing up different days than they originally said with no heads up. How much should I harass? How much of a hard ass should I be about this? Just roll with it or hold them to the higher standards of showing up when they said they would. Now, if you sit there and get mad at contractors for not showing up when they say they were going to, we might never get the job done. But go ahead, guys.
I think this varies wildly on what the problem is. You know, obviously, if you've got water gushing, you're going to need to be a hard ass and get somebody out there like ASAP. If you're, again, what's your first 10 words? If your first 10 words are, can you come out and give me a quote? You're just going to need to deal with when they get there, because everybody in these markets, they're busy. The contractors are busy, period. And again, going back to free quotes, if you're asking them for a quote is different than, hey, I want you to do this, but hey, can you let me know how much it's going to cost? You know, something like that. It's way different conversation. So, you know, again, it just kind of, the culture in different areas is a little different, and the culture in the Smokies is a little bit like, they hear you. If you said it's a turn and it's critical, you need to stay on that. But if you just, like, they said they're going to be out there today and you said okay, and then they don't, I wouldn't get too upset about that right on the first shot. So
I'll say too much emphasis on the Smokies. It's the same thing everywhere.
Yeah.
A vacation rental market is a vacation rental market. They're all, you know, it's a similar vibe. And then even just any small town in America, it's going to be, I'm in too many markets, quite frankly. I find that it's the same in all of them. But Tim happens to be in the Smokies, so. But yeah, Derek, any more comments on that? Anybody?
I mean, I think that's the key is make sure they understand what the circumstances are. I mean, if they have to get inside the cabin, they need to go only when it's open or during a turn. So I think that part, it all comes down to really clear communication with them up front, and, you know, just, yeah, be a hard ass, but be a hard ass on the front end respectfully, you know, to say that here's what my schedule, here's what my openings are. Are you available one of these days to do it? And, you know, if they try to show up on a day when a guest is there, you know, and they tell you, well, I couldn't get in, and just apologize, say, man, I'm sorry, but I can't let somebody in when a guest isn't there. Are you available these days? And just be polite about it. But deliberate, I think, is a good way.
Let's touch on that briefly. We are dealing with short-term rentals here at the short-term shop, of course, and we'd love to have you buy one with us and rock it and kick it, knock it out of the park. Shorttermshop.com. Come join the party. We are dealing with guests in most cases. So just briefly, guys, you know, my policy in my organization, I do not send anybody to the house when it is occupied. It's very similar to long-term rental. You know, you're going to need to get written notice from the guest. And when day and time that I can go enter this property for this job, get it on the platform in writing. I see all too often where and a lot of times it's from people that to me look like they have quite a bit of experience, but maybe aren't, you know, didn't come through the short-term shopper. Maybe they're old school. I don't know what the case may be, but where they're just like shooting people over to these houses to go fix these, a lot of times, tiny little jobs that could frankly wait. And then you're risking getting yourself in real big trouble by going over there and trying, you know, knock the door down and go in there and fix this water leak. So guys, touch on that. What are your systems? I do not send anybody to the property unless it's an absolute emergency, and I get it in writing. Again, very much like a long-term rental where you know, long-term rental, we need what? 48 hours notice in most states to go into the property. So with short-term rental, why would anybody think that they can just show up and walk in without some sort of written notice? I have no idea. But what are your systems there?
I first and foremost, I won't ever send anybody out unless the guest requests it. So if a guest comes to me and says, hey, we've got this problem, I will respond with, I can get somebody. Is this, you know, do I need to get somebody out there as soon as possible? Or is this something that I should get addressed after your stay? If it's an important, some of that stuff is obvious, but if it's something that the guest, it needs to be resolved by the guest is there, then I respond and say, I can get somebody out there. I'll start making some phone calls. You don't have to be there when they arrive. I don't want this to disrupt your vacation, but I need your permission for it to be okay for them to enter to look into the situation. Are you okay with that? And only once I get that, approval from the guest, again, this is all done on platform, then I'll start making some phone calls to figure out who I can get out there and when, and then constant communication back and forth with the guest. But only if it's something that the guest is requiring or expecting or asking to get done while they're there. Otherwise, I make the phone calls for it to get done after they check out.
Yeah, I see a lot
Completely
of,
Reagan, go ahead.
I see a lot of hosts that I think you can be too reactive. You know, sometimes a guest is just letting you know something's going on, so you kind of have to feel out the situation to see how you need to address it. You may not need to send somebody, this minute, it can wait till the guest stay is done. So just don't be so reactive,
Completely agree with that. I think
100%.
sometimes people, don't forget that a lot of these people have never used Airbnb or Vrbo before. And it's like, might be new to them, and they show up and they see something broken, and their first thought might be, I'm going to get blamed for this and they're going to charge me. They're scared, and they could, so they might just be telling you just to tell you. And exactly what Reagan said, just don't overreact to that stuff.
Yeah, I had a guest take
absolutely.
every single scratch on every single pan one time in my house.
And they're not even necessarily complaining. They're just like worried, like they're going to get blamed for it, so just
Some of
have some
them-
empathy. Empathy goes a long ways. So.
Yeah, some of them think they feel like they're doing a good thing. Some of them will come to you and say, "Hey, I know you're a remote host, and sometimes people don't tell you these things. I thought you should know that this stuff is going on." And as a host, I appreciate that, because I'm not at my properties every day. And as long as they're being respectful and coming at me in a way to say, "Hey, I just want you to be aware of this," then I like that information. So yeah, don't assume. That's why I always lead to it when they point something out. I will say, "Do you need me to get somebody out to look at this?" And a lot of times they'll come back and say, no, we just wanted you to be aware of it. "Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will definitely get this taken care of after you check out." And it's all it takes sometimes. 5-star review.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it too, being on the defensive. It's just a little too easy to get defensive with guests. And it's because, we do occasionally get drugged through the mud. And Joe, what? You don't get drugged through the mud?
Never, man. All my guests are perfect. I never have any problems with them. They're amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, guys.
Joe, you're amazing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. North Carolina Beaches Market, Carolina Beaches for Joe.
Zero
I guess
problem.
the rest of you guys are in the Smokies. Yeah. Yeah. You guys are all
I'm Gulf Shores technically.
Gulf Shores. Yep.
So a little bit of both.
All this about like where to find contractors and everything. Let's not forget, like, you got an amazing short-term shop agent. If you're in a bind and you need somebody, we're here if you need something. And if it's, we don't know, we can probably find somebody that may know. So, don't forget that we're here to support you post the sale. So,
dude, a rock star real estate agent always has recommendations, so, and that's why we're here. The beauty of the short-term shop. We'd love to have you. The shorttermshop.com. Thanks everybody. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll catch you later.